If you want to determine whether a Splatoon player has competitive experience or not, an efficient way to do it would be to ask them how they feel about spawn camping. I keep seeing discussions about spawn camping pop up in stream chats for major tournaments, and while some of them may be competitive players trolling the audience of other competitive players, baiting them into an argument about something the two actually agree about, I've heard enough talk about the practice that I think it still merits a video. We're going to talk about what spawn camping is, the counterplay to it, and why there's really not that much reason to actually worry about it. Spawn is the location your character respawns from when you get splatted, and camping is a long-time gaming term that refers to obstinately staying in a particular location, typically hidden, waiting for an opponent to come by and taking them out as soon as they come by. Put together, that means you're staying right where enemy players leave their spawn to enter the map and trying to splat them to send them right back. It's a practice that can make the players feel like they're not able to play the game, as they respawn, only to almost immediately have to spend another 10 seconds waiting to respawn again. It is on this basis, this feeling that they lack agency, that some casual players will find it distasteful or unfair to spawn camp. But if it were so unfair, so powerful a strategy, you'd see people trying to use it if they really wanted to win the game. You will see competitive players pushing up really far on the map and taking control of space they need to play the objective, and the better the team, the faster they'll take it, and the more startling it can be that somewhere on the map you thought was safe is controlled by your opponents. But camping as far up as the enemy spawn itself is actually something you rarely see in competitive Splatoon. This is because a lot of the time, teams either can't pull it off, or it's not worth it for them to do so even if they could. Competitive play, with some notable exceptions, revolves more around the 4 ranked objective modes, and it doesn't always help to spawn camp in those modes. Strong teams are aiming to KO the game if at all possible, which means they need to focus a significant amount of effort on playing the objective. The enemy spawn isn't where the objective is. Ironically, despite being the mode enjoyed more by casual players, Turf War actually incentivizes spawn camping the most. Objective modes allow for KOs. If one team is overwhelmingly more skilled, games don't have to last more than 45 seconds, and in that time, they're going to be more focused on the objective than they are the enemy spawn. But in Turf War, a match that would have lasted 45 seconds in any other game mode needs to go for the full 3 minutes. In that time, the winning team is going to paint the map all the way up as they push forward, and given a dominant position in the game, they'll end up running out of unpainted turf on their side of the map and in mid. The only place to go to do anything relevant to the objective anymore is forward. That's all there's left to paint. But let's say you get put in that kind of a position. What's the counterplay? What can you do? While I could reasonably say that being spawn camped is the result of multiple mistakes piling up on top of each other and that you should avoid going down often enough to let them take that much space in the first place, there's still plenty that you can do once you're in that situation. One easy answer here is just super jump over the top of the spawn camper somewhere else on the map, if that's possible. But competitive teams probably won't pass by your teammates or beacons or big bubblers before they get into your spawn, so while you should check for those opportunities to bypass the obstacle, we do still need a plan in case that's not an option. The first step to break a spawn camp head on is not to panic. This is the most important step, and not just for the sake of your own emotions and mindset. The spawn camper is looking for you to do something reckless. They want you to drop out of spawn without looking for them, to just wander down off the ledge, dropping into enemy ink, fixing your sights on the objective, without trying to spot any other threats in the meantime. If you panic, seeing points tick down on the objective timer or seeing the map fill up in enemy ink, you're a lot more likely to feel like you need to make a desperation play and get out onto the map quickly to make up for lost time. Don't panic. Panicking and running in will probably lose you time, because you won't go in informed of any dangers, and that's when you're easiest to just send back to spawn, and keep the team's spawns staggered from each other. Once you have stopped yourself from panicking, look out on the map and figure out what spots are safe for you to stand on. Splatoon 3 has a lot of areas on the map that are only accessible to your team. You can almost always launch somewhere that it's hard for the other team to hit you. Do this, but don't go any further than you know it's safe. Stay away from ledges and blind corners. Paint thoroughly enough around you that you know nobody is hiding anywhere in your weapon's range. Put bombs over ledges if you need to, or use sub-weapons like point sensors, autobombs, torpedoes, or toxic mists that can inform you if someone's hiding where you throw them. From here, your goal is just to paint for your special and wait for your teammates to respawn and regroup with you. See, if you go in now and you have other teammates down, your team is at a numbers disadvantage. It may be you against 3 members of the enemy team. That's not a fight you want to take. If you wait, though, your teammates will respawn and be there with you, and now you'll have backup. Even if you do get splatted by someone you didn't notice, there will be someone right there with you to see that happen in front of them and trade the opponent back and kick them out. A 1-for-1 trade like that is actually a really good outcome for you most of the time, because you respawn really close to where you got splatted, but if your opponent wants to get back there, they have to spend a lot more time traveling back to the same spot. But you're also less likely to be splatted because you'll have your whole team rolling out, and you'll also have your special to use since you kept yourself alive and painted for it. On top of that, if you pick a good spot in your spawn that favors your weapon, you can usually find advantageous positions to fight from. Spawns have high ground over the places around them, so use that how your weapon can to spot enemy players, hit them from places they can't hit back, use the paint that you put down while you were farming for your special, and force them away. Playing from the enemy spawn is often just disadvantageous. In splat zones, you'll often see teams push up a certain distance and then not try to go any further, because the risk of getting caught for getting too greedy, taking too much space, isn't worth the extra time it could buy on the splat zone. They don't need to splat you, they only need to waste time long enough to KO, and it's hard for them to waste your time if they go down themselves. In Rainmaker, playing too far away from the Rainmaker means you're leaving gaps open in your defensive perimeter around the Rainmaker carrier, and it's likely an opponent slips through to splat them on the way to the pedestal. Same problem with tower control. It's hard to cover every available pushing option out of the enemy spawn when you also need to put one of your members on the tower. In Clam Blitz, holding further past the basket may not even help because you're not in range to score on the basket and there won't be many clams that spawn near you. Turf War is most conducive to it, but there, spawn campers have to be careful, because all it takes is for your team to pull off one successful special push with 30 seconds left in the game, and even if they've been in control for the first 2 minutes and 30 seconds, if they go 3 down then, you have the time you need to get back above 50% map control and win the game. So in this mode in particular, even if it takes 3 or 4 tries, getting out even one time can be all the success you need to take the game, and you shouldn't give up on it even if you get splatted more than you splat them. As with many aspects of learning the game, spawn camping can feel overwhelming, but with time, you'll develop the knowledge and skills you need to trivialize it. Some maps may make spawn camping easier than others, but ultimately if spawn camping is happening in a competitive setting, there's usually enough of a skill gap that even banning the practice still wouldn't change the outcome of the match anyway, if such a thing were even possible, because how would a spawn camping ban even work? How far forward is too close to the spawn? Are certain areas of the map just off limits to the enemy team, or is it based on the amount of time a player spends there? How long would they have to spend there? How is that player supposed to keep track of that amount of time? Every map is different, and even the same map is often laid out differently depending on the mode. Do players now have to memorize the places on the map that are off limits to them for every map mode combination in the game as a prerequisite for being able to compete in any tournament? Could you ensure that every tournament would enforce this set of rules the same way as other tournaments? It's so much more reasonable just to play the game according to what's possible in the game and not try to enforce arbitrary rules on top of that. In competitive play, we don't ban strategies because we don't like losing to them. We learn how to counter those strategies and adapt our playstyles so we don't lose to them anymore. If you're getting spawn camped and you don't like it, you could keep playing the same way you have been and decide it's not a big enough problem to try and learn and grow from it. Or you could rethink the way you leave your spawn and start turning the tables on opponents who try it. It's your choice, but I personally think the second approach makes the game a lot more interesting.